Good morning. You've heard a lot about the Vietnamese boat people this week. You heard Collins and his views, Doug that is. You heard Sven Robinson, who didn't want to give me his views. He's the NDP MP. You heard Flora MacDonald, the Minister of External Affairs, who laid down, apparently accurately, the outside ground rules for the numbers of boat people coming into Canada this year. Today you're going to meet the boat people again, but this time you will meet a family of Vietnamese boat people now in Vancouver. There they are, 12 of them, and they're going to be in the studio. And having dealt with that this morning, after the boat people, I'm going to take a political crack at one of the new Tory MPs in Kamloops, a fellow by the name of Don Cameron, who appears to be saying that some kind of blacklist operating in the legal profession, except for people of whom he approves in Kamloops. Strange things for a new, pristine government to be shouting the odds about. Tory lawyers to get perks of patronage in Kamloops. And Don Cameron will be on the air by phone from Kamloops with me later in the program this morning. And then as lighter relief, because it is Friday, on the end of our first 5 days of 90 minutes of prime time with Webster at 9 a.m. precisely, we're going to go to one of my favorite people whom I have quoted for years as the author of a book called The Naked Ape, That's You and Me, Desmond Morris, world famous in his own way, the naked ape hell-bent for self-destruction. And I wonder if Desmond Morris, when he comes this morning, will feel the same as he did when he wrote that book. But for this morning, the boat people. And I have a very specially trained announcer who is going to do the break for me, the first commercial break on the Webster Show as we start this Friday morning.
Webster will back in a minute.
Here beside me are the Yips, all 12 of them, Vietnamese boat people. And you're going to meet them with my excellent command of Chinese. We shall do a really exploratory interview of Vietnamese too, of course, with my friends the Yips, the boat people. With me in the studio too this morning is Pastor Lee of the Mennonite Refugee Resettlement Center. Is that right, Pastor?
Yeah, from Chinese Mennonite Church.
Chinese Mennonite Church. And you're going to act as my official interpreter. Is that correct?
I try.
But first this morning, we're going to see Brian with a report of the boat people in their new homes in Vancouver.
Vietnam for various political reasons and had to resettle in various parts of the world. Well, hundreds of families came to Vancouver, a good number of them here in Chinatown. Lots of stories about the resettlement of those families, but I don't think there's one quite as touching as the one we're about to tell you. 12 people, all in the same family, 3 generations. They got here in 3 different directions at 3 different times. But the happy part about it, they're settled together now under one roof in a tiny little house here in Chinatown.
These are the 12 members of the Deep family as they were in front of their Saigon grocery store before the communist takeover. Grandfather, grandmother, 2 sons, 2 daughters, and 6 grandchildren. And this is where the only surviving members of that family unit lived, in a Saigon apartment block. Then came the horrors of their plight to get away from the communist regime. And last November, 6 members of the family found themselves with hundreds of others aboard a huge freighter, forced out in the China Sea without a country. The family unit was split up. The other 6 divided into refugee camps. It was the Mennonite Church and Pastor Stephen Lee who are responsible for bringing the family together again in Canada.
Each family, they have 12 people in that family. They make the 3 trips. First trip is the grandpa and auntie and uncle with the 3 and 2 grandchildren. They came out from Vietnam by the boat, the Hai Hong boat, last November, and Canada picked up 600 from that boat. And the second trip is the grandma and father, mother, and 3 grandchildren. They escaped from Vietnam, went to Bidong Island in Malaysia. And the last group is grandchildren. He escaped from Vietnam to Hong Kong. I think they pay over 10 ounces for one person.
10 ounces of gold for one person.
Yes.
So that's over $3,000 a piece.
Well, right now you know that.
With the price of gold
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Two family members in the first group of 6 brought to Canada are working in Chinatown. New Deep, along with 2 other Vietnamese refugees, are working at Maxim's Bakery. Their language and culture easily fits in with the Chinese style of life. Her nephew, Hui Hui, attends school classes in the day and works evenings at the Shaw Chinese Theater. Between the 2 of them, they are able to support the first 6 family members who came here in November. 10-year-old Anna is in special English classes at Strathcona Elementary.
They put an old hat on his head and a pie into his mouth. Then they threw snowballs at him. Pretty soon, a little dog came along and barked at the snowman. The boys laughed.
Everybody. D. G.
Anna's younger sister, Annie, hasn't been here quite as long as her sister, and the special English classes for her are still at the elementary level.
H. 1, 2, 3. Very good. That side. Very good. Okay. Could you erase the chalkboard, please? Erase the chalkboard. Gently. Could you erase the chalkboard, please? Let Annie first, then you can do it.
6-year-old Kim doesn't understand any English at all, and because of the tremendous overflow of special English classes, she's with regular learners.
And who was our champion? 13. Who had 13 this morning? All right, Sarah, you go. Kim. 9.
All 12 of the refugees live in this tiny Chinatown duplex. Half of them support themselves. The other half are still looking for work and on government assistance. For most families, 6 at the dinner table would be more than enough. But every night in this family, there are a dozen happy faces, all grateful to be here.
And there is a 13th person here, 14 counting me, and that is Pastor Lee of the Chinese Mennonite Church. Now, tell me, these people were all brought to Canada under the sponsorship of the Chinese Mennonite Church, is that right?
No,
Tell me right.
these people is sponsored by the government,
Yeah.
but they escape, divide 3 groups. The Canada, they help them to get together in Vancouver in different times. The first group is come last November. Yeah, second group is the come May, and third group come from recently.
And they're all living in that one little house that
Yes.
Brian showed us on the film just now.
Yes.
Now, tell me about the Chinese Mennonite Church's involvement in this resettlement program. Do you take those brought in by the government and supervise them and help them and do all the kind of liaison with the community for them?
Yes, and we also sponsor the refugee by Mennonite churches across Canada. Up to now, across Canada, Mennonite churches sponsor over 2,000 refugees now.
Now, over 2,000 already.
Yeah.
And you're bringing in more from Laos and Thailand.
Yeah, right.
There's a young man here we might be able to get on the program, we might not be able to get on the program.
Yeah.
How are they settling down, Pastor Lee? How are these people? The Deep, is it Diep in Vietnamese?
Well, Vietnamese deep and Chinese yip.
Vietnamese Deep, Chinese Yip.
Yeah,
For
right.
the sake of simplicity, we'll call them the Yip family.
Yeah, right.
How do you think they're settling down?
Well, they settle very well, and 2 of them already got a job.
That's the bakery people.
Yeah, bakery, and 1 work in the theater.
Uh-huh. And tell me, how long do you think it will be before they are kind of on their own feet as a family unit? How long will it take them to settle down?
Well, the first group, 5 of them already become self-supporting now. So they really like to find a job. If your station like to hire one of a young man, he willing to work here.
That's a very good pitch, Pastor. I'll tell you that. I hope they're listening upstairs.
Yeah.
Now, apart from that, though, what difficulties have they encountered since they came here? Or have you managed to avoid all difficulties?
Well, difficulties, I think it's the language problem. But I think most of them, they take the English courses.
Has their standard of living not dropped considerably since they came to Canada?
Well, they came to Canada is the need to adjust their life, because before they're in Vietnam, they are very rich people.
This was in Saigon?
Yes.
And they were they rich, or were they just kind of middle class?
Well, I think it's on the top.
On the top.
Yeah.
What happened to all their possessions and goods?
Well, all the take over by the government. They left 2 cars and a big apartment. And the government said, you go, we keep this.
And what did they have to pay? I think Brian covered it, but I want to stress it. What did they have to pay to get out of, to get their exit visas?
Well, they get 10 ounces gold for each person.
So that would be at that time maybe $2,500 each.
Each. But the older grandson, he escaped 3 times. He paid over 50 ounces gold.
For one permit?
Yeah. Is that
Harry?
Yeah.
I don't know if we've got a camera on Harry or not. I'll talk to Harry later about
Yeah.
that. 50 ounces of gold.
Yeah.
Did they have the gold saved, or did they sell their possessions to buy?
Well, most of Vietnamese, they keep the gold at home. Is there for protection, invasion in Vietnam.
In other words, the money is not in the bank. The money is kept in gold coinage or in gold itself. It's a sad story, isn't it?
Yes.
How about you? How long have you been in Canada, Pastor?
Well, I escaped from mainland China 15 years ago. In 1964, I swam 7 hours to escape from the communist China to Hong Kong. And when I was in Hong Kong, the Mennonite Church supported me go to the Bible seminary. And I got a training in Hong Kong, and they sent me over, come to Canada. Right now, I've become Chinese Mennonite Church. I'm a pastor of their church right now. And I know the Mennonite people, most of them, they came from Russia. They are refugees too. So they are very happy to help.
Maybe this is why they understand the problem.
Yeah, right.
This may seem a silly question, Pastor, but these people, the deeps, the yips, deep, yip, yip, deep,
Yeah.
they are not Mennonite, of course.
No.
They're not Mennonite.
Yeah.
So how many families are you actually looking after for the government just now?
Well, we just help, we can help, try our best. But our most job is to do some promotion among the churches, encourage them to sponsor more refugees come over. And
for everyone sponsored by the government, by people like you or individuals, one is sponsored by the government.
Yeah, right.
I think they've got now to 14,000 individual or group sponsorships, which means now a total of 28,000 already.
Yeah.
Stay there, Pastor Lee, because I want to talk to the Yip family, and you will help me, although I'm going to try it myself to begin with after Anna, after this break. After this break. Don't forget the Cameron and what's his name in Kamloops, Linda? Not yet. Oh. Lee Yu, again, Truk. Name. Todak. Toda. Father Yip, Mother Yip, Grandma Yip, Grandpa Yip. We won't explain it. Siong. Harry. Out on the outside, you. And your name again? Davy Wong.
Will, yeah. Okay. Okay, we're less than a minute to the floor, Jack. They'd like you to have you standing over there, and they have phone numbers standing by.
What phone numbers?
Uh,
You mean for calls?
no, refugee phone number if you want to sponsor.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, let's go out the way, big pram. Now we're going to talk to the Yip family. And I have 2 or 3 interpreters, but first I'm going to start with my special commercial announcer. What is your name?
My name is Anna,
How old are you?
12 years old,
How long have you been at school in Canada?
6 months.
6 months. You speak very well.
Yes,
Can you sing any songs?
no,
No. You sing any Vietnamese songs? No. How do you like Canada?
well, I came to Canada, I'm happy, very happy.
That's very nice. Now, this is your little sister? Isn't it?
Yes.
What is her name?
Her name is Annie.
You are Anna, she is Annie.
Yes,
How old is Annie?
she is 9 years old.
9.
Yeah,
I forgot to ask you how old you were. How old are you?
I'm 12.
You are 12.
Yeah.
Say that again.
I'm 12 years old.
Say 12.
12,
12.
12,
12.
12.
Very good. Now, this is your little brother, isn't it?
Yes,
Kim?
Kim.
Kim. Seo. 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 Ah, Seo. Seo. What does Seo mean?
Seal.
What does it mean in English?
Happy.
Happy.
Yeah.
Could it mean smile?
Uh-huh.
Smile. Seo, 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 Seo. Then next, who's next to Kim? Tell me who's next to Kim sitting on the riser.
It's uncle.
That's your uncle.
Yeah.
And his name is Toda.
Toilet.
Tolak Yip.
Huh.
And then next, oh, here's a lady I can speak to. Can I cross in front? But look clumsy, but don't let it bother you. Here is Lee.
My name is Lê Diếp.
Lee Yip. Can I, are you married?
I am single.
Oh, oh, still, how old are you?
I am 28.
Again?
28.
28.
28.
You don't look 28, you only look 18. Hey, you can understand me in that. Now, back again, crawl across the floor, and I'll go up the back. Here is the father and mother, Mr. Yip.
Yeah.
How do you do?
Well, thank you.
Very well, thank you. And this is Mrs. Yip. Hello, Mrs. Yip.
Well, yeah.
Her name is?
She is Moi Yip.
Moi Yip.
Yeah.
Your wife.
Yeah.
And here is grandmother. Hello, grandma. Hello. Seo, 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 Seo. And there is grandpa, but she is the grandmother on the maternal side, and he is the grandfather on the fraternal side. Isn't that right, Pastor Lee? Yeah. Now, I'm going to walk right round the back, get out of sight for a minute, just so you won't see me. Here, how old is Seong? Seong, is that right? Pastor, ask him how old he is.
18 years old.
18.
Say in English, I am 18.
18.
Say, I am 18.
I am 18.
Louder, I am 18.
I am 18.
Very good. This is Harry.
Harry, yes.
How old is Harry?
I'm 19 years old.
19. Are you working, Harry?
Yes, I'm.
What do you do, Harry?
I don't know what, right?
Is he working?
I just work at the theater.
At the tailor shop?
Yeah.
Theater.
At the theater? Oh, yes, I saw you on Brian's film, taking the tickets at the theater. 19. This gentleman doesn't belong here. I'll come back to him in a moment. And here is Lily.
Yeah.
Lily, is Lily the eldest child, Pastor?
Yes.
How old are you, Lily?
I am 22 years old.
How long have you now been in Canada, Lily?
I come Canada
6 months ago.
6 months ago.
She came with the first section of the family, is that correct? Pastor?
Yes.
She came with the first section of the family. Who came first, Pastor?
Grandpa
Grandpa?
and grandma
Grandma?
and the oldest.
Harry?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Lily?
Yeah.
And Lily. And this gentleman, his name is David
Wong.
Davy Wong. Are you Vancouver born, Davy?
Yeah.
No. Where from?
Where I come from Vietnam.
When?
Uh, um, fin- no, 3 months.
3 months ago.
Okay.
Do you like Canada?
Yes,
I am
I-
nice.
Do you like Canada, Lily?
Yes, I am nice. I am very, very nice.
Very, very what?
Like.
Oh, I see, very, very like.
Yeah.
You are very, very like. You are all very, very like. See you. What's the break? Well, anything else I can do with the kids? I don't think so. Except Kim. Say Kim. Come on. Oh, he's shy. Anna, thank you very much. You've been a very good interpreter for me this morning.
Yes.
Now I want you to say, I'm going to an early break. Webster will be back in 2 minutes.
Webster will be back in 2 minutes.
Hooray! Take the break.
Not be going over there again?
No, but I want lots of shots of them.
Okay.
Let's make sure we have a camera on them, or can we do?
Okay, that means, then the lights stay up then, eh?
Yeah, leave the lights up. Why not? That was very good.
And through our center, we already give the 300 refugee names to the church's sponsor.
Good. Now this, by the way, just to make myself perfectly clear, is not an emotional pitch all the way along for the Vietnamese boat people. But what it is, it's to let you see what a false impression you often get of people when you don't meet them in the flesh, laughing and smiling and obviously so happy to be in this country. Which is why I went to the trouble this week to have a hammer at Collins on the subject, who of course is away out on one side, and Robinson is far out in his own different way. But I was pleased yesterday when Flora MacDonald made it quite clear that to calm the fears of people, that the refugee numbers coming into the country will be a maximum this year of 140,000, of immigrants coming in will be 140,000. That's the 100,000 quota set by the provinces and the federal government together, plus 40,000 additional for the specific cause of the basic Vietnamese boat people refugees. Now, obviously, this is something that must be done. You must, at least as a nation like Canada, make a gesture of compassion. We can't hope to solve the whole problem or take every refugee. That's obviously quite out of the question. The other point that Flora MacDonald made clear yesterday under my questioning was that the National Coalition is wrong when they say that the normal family reunification applies to everybody and anybody. Ipso facto, 50,000 Vietnamese, 650,000 relatives. The upper limits still apply on integration into the society. But what really staggered me yesterday was the information from Flora that the individual and group sponsorships have already reached 14,000. That's a total of 28 on a one-on-one basis. And obviously is going to reach the top, if not go over it a little bit. Have you found any resentment to the Vietnamese boat people, Pastor? Any resentment, any anger among Canadians?
Well, some Canadians, they said we don't like this kind of people. But we found that most of these people is very good citizens.
Yeah, they work very hard, which is why I wanted to show a family in the studio this morning, grandmother, grandfather, mother, father, aunts, uncles, children, and boyfriend, David Wong, who slipped into the picture one way or another. Now, what kind of response have you had for sponsorship applications through your refugee center?
Well, we do some promotion among the churches and ask them to sponsor more refugees. if they like to sponsor the refugee, and they can come to our center to pick up the refugee name and the picture, and pick up what they want. We have a window.
Where would these refugees now be?
Well, in every refugee camp from Malaysia, from Indonesia.
These people are in the Lao
Thailand.
refugee camp in Ubon, Thailand.
Yeah, from Thailand.
Well, what's the phone number?
2514611.
Have we got it up? 2514611. Is that just for church groups or is that for anyone?
Well, if any individual they like to sponsor the refugee, they also can make the donation to us, and we collect the donation. This family, we collect $8,000, and we're going to sponsor them. I just signed the paper yesterday, for this family.
I see.
$8,000, you can bring the one family like that.
It's a lot of money.
Well, if they get a job, 2 months, 3 months, you just spend a couple $1,000s.
And guarantee that the Vietnamese family or a Thai family that makes it will pay you back the money, maybe?
No, they don't pay. Wow.
That's my Scotch blood. I'm sorry I asked that question. I put my foot in it. I thought I was making it easier for everybody. 2514611. Now, is there anything else I want to do with the Yip family? Seal. Seal. Grandma. Good for grandma. Good smile. How many more jobs are needed in this family? Grandpa has a job? No.
No.
Grandma doesn't have a job.
I think father and mother, they need a job.
What does father do?
Usually they run the grocery business in Vietnam, Saigon.
And mother too?
Yeah, mother too, yeah.
What about Lily? She's going to school just now. The good-looking one in the back row.
Yeah.
She going to school?
And married.
She is married?
No, going to.
Going to get married. Harry is working. What about Seong? Is he working? Seong, this side back row. How old is Seong?
18 years old.
18.
Yeah.
Lily is working. Lee Yip is working.
Yeah.
And one of the boys has a handicap. He has a hearing defect.
Yeah, hearing defect.
Hearing defect.
Well, the Canada pick up just one family as a union.
That's good.
Yeah.
And they are happy.
Yeah.
But you say that you need more sponsors.
Yeah.
Well, how do I say thank you very much in Chinese or Vietnamese?
To je.
Toje, 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 toje. And best of luck. Okay, I'll take a break and I'm going to leave them there for a moment. Just for a moment. I'm going to do a short piece with the guy from Thailand, wrap it up, do the Kamloops thing, and then the Naked Ape after this break. Pastor Lee successfully twisted my arm during the break to get another spokesman for the refugee problem and the refugee himself on the air. Pastor Lee, introduce me to your friend.
Yeah, this is my friend, Khamsing.
Khamsing.
My name is Louangxay Khamsing.
Your English is good. Is it?
A little bit.
Give me your story. Tell me what you want to say.
First of all, I would like to thank for the government. They have helped more the refugees come to Canada. And especially I have to thank for the God too. And they help our family safety around Canada.
Thank for the God, he said. Thank God. Now, where are you from?
I'm from Laos.
Laos? When did you get here?
I got here on May 8th.
How did you get here? Did you come the easy way or the hard way as a boat person?
It feel very, very hard for me when I was in the camp. When I was in the camps, I feel very hopeless because most countries they accept the refugee. They must have the sponsorship. But for my family, I'm without a relative. So I'm very hopeless. I cannot contact with the outside world. But I'm very lucky. The Canadian government accept my family very generously, accept my families without a sponsorship and arranged by the government.
Let me understand that. Your family is still in the camp?
Yeah, when I was in the camp.
Is the family still in the camp?
His own family here, but he got older brother, younger brother, is sponsored by Mennonite Church. They are coming, 18 people.
18 people coming.
11 already here in Chilliwack.
sponsored by the Mennonite Church.
Yeah.
7 more to come.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell
on the
me,
way to come.
what were conditions like in the camp when you left?
Oh, I have to tell you, the position in the camps very difficult and very hard life there. I remained there over 2 years there.
You were 2 years in the camp.
Yeah.
Enough food?
No, the food's not enough there. Everything's very short there. And the
Everything's
water
very
difficult.
short.
And the water's not enough, and the clothing and the housing's very crowded.
How many refugees in Thailand?
And now whole Thailand's over 150,000.
150,000.
Refugees.
Western Europe is taking a total of what, 250,000, is that correct, of all refugees?
Well, I
But
don't.
in my camps, about 50,000.
50,000?
Non-Thai camp.
Nong Khai.
Camp, yeah.
So there are 11 of you here and hopefully 7 more coming to complete the unit.
Yeah.
He's a Mennonite too.
No, and arranged by the government.
Arranged by the government.
Yeah.
Sponsored here by the Mennonites.
Yeah.
From Chilliwack.
The Mennonite Church sponsor my brother's family and my parents' family. Now already come 11 person come to the Chilliwack.
Do you like it? I mean, do you like this country? Of course you do, but
Yeah, I like very much this country.
what is your trade? What do you do for a living?
Now I got a job. I'm working in the clothing factory
In Vancouver?
in Vancouver. I work at the WH Top Sport factory.
Try that again. WH what?
Top Sport.
WH Top Sport Factory. Pastor Lee, I think we've got about canvassed it this morning. And I want to say thanks to Pastor Lee of the Canadian Mennonite Church and all their work. Tom Song.
Yeah.
Khamsing.
Grandma, Grandpa, stand up and face the camera. Have you got them on the camera now?
Yeah.
No, I didn't want you all to stand up. Sit down, and thank you very much indeed. Best of luck. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anna, come on over here. Come on over here. Special handshake. Is Anna on camera? Special handshake. with Anna. Thank you very much, Anna. An excellent interpreter. I'll get down to Old Clothes and Porridge after this break. Thanks, folks. The best laid plans of mice and men gang after Gley. And guess who's watching the program this morning in Vancouver? It's my old colleague and buddy Art Finlay. And he made a very cute remark just now when he phoned up Linda and he said, enjoying Webster's program, and he says it's all very well for him to teach the Vietnamese boat people English, but he said, for goodness sake, don't teach them in his accent. Now, I was planning to talk right now, if you'll get off the phone, to the Tory MP in Kamloops by the name of Don Cameron, who made and seems to substantiate, at least in large part, the report that appeared yesterday. And I spoke to him earlier on the phone this morning, in which he has shattered my naive political beliefs that new governments mean a different standard of integrity, and that patronage at least will be done by order and council and without being blatantly peddled across the country. Cameron is the man who is quoted as saying, in effect, that there's a little bit of a blacklist of any lawyers, presumably Liberal and NDP or anybody else, who will not be hired by the government to do legal work, certainly in his areas, and that the work, in effect, will only go to those who are of the conservative faith. I don't like it one little bit. Not one jot nor one tittle do I like it. And that was why, to be quite fair to Cameron, before I went into hysterics about the subject, that I wanted to get him on the topic. But I can't. No luck, Linda. Still busy. 372-2262, right? Is that the number? Have I got the right number? Well, I'll go to the... Oh, it's the right number. Well, I'm in a bit of a bind at the moment. I'm in a real spot. Anything on the phones, Linda? I'll take a break and reorganize and come back. Take an early break now and get out of the way. stupid of us to date how many, but once and then, as long as we don't bring every goddamn relative in the world, you've got to make the gesture.
Sure.
They said, but we're heading to your kind of trouble. Of course, you live in Malta now, don't you?
No. I'm back in England
It
again.
says Malta.
Well, I left Malta in '73. I'm back at Oxford now.
Teaching.
30 seconds.
Research, doing research, yes. I've gone back to
You're
my...
the kind of Jane. I give up on the Tory MP in Kamloops for the moment. If we can get him before the end of the programme, well and good. If not, too bad. I don't read that many books that closely, but I picked up a book and I actually paid for it. It wasn't a review copy, a number of years ago, called The Naked Ape by Desmond Morris. And I picked up a phrase, Desmond Morris, who is, I think you're pretty well world famous as a zoologist and a kind of anthropologist. Is that not correct?
Well, I think my name has become associated with the naked ape, certainly, yes.
I picked up a phrase which I credit to you, which may be totally inaccurate, that the whole lesson of the naked ape, I'm being quite serious. Yes, I am being serious. One never knows when it's showbiz and when it's serious. That the whole lesson of the naked ape, the study of the human behavior related to the monkey, chimpanzee, was that we are all naked apes hell-bent for self-destruction. Was that an oversimplification of your message, or was that your true message?
The true message was that as long as one is aware of the danger of self-destruction, then there is less danger. The real fallacy is to believe that in some way we're protected, that we are different from other animals, in that, in our case, no matter what we do, we'll be all right. The fact is that it's very easy for us, if we don't stop and think about what we're doing, to destroy ourselves. There's no special protection for us, and what I was trying to do is to say, with optimism, because I'm basically an optimist, that if we do stop and think, then we'll be okay. Now, it's interesting that that was written, well, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And since then, there has been a new movement. People actually know the word ecology now. And when I wrote Naked Ape, the word ecology was still a specialist word.
I know, but I know you say you're an optimist, and I'm not particularly deep or philosophical or a great thinker. And before we talk about your animal days or whatever it happens to be, the message I got from the naked ape was that from the moment we moved down from the trees and out from under the cover, destroying the original ecology, we were bound to destroy ourselves.
Well, ultimately...
But is that not what the book said?
Well, no, ultimately every species has a limited life period. We may last for 1,000 years, we may last for another 1,000,000 years, but we'll probably change eventually into something else. But the fact is that our success story has been our problem. We've been too successful. We spent 1,000,000 years or more as simple hunters, and we had a good relationship with the rest of the world. Then when we became farmers and later industrialists, we became too successful too quickly. We are nouveau riche in animal terms. We became, in a matter of a few thousand years, which is a drop in the ocean of time when it comes to evolution, just a few thousand years, we became a species that was so successful that we were changing the face of the globe before we knew quite how to change it. And very often, if you look around the cities, you realize that an architect's drawing board is an area where geometry dominates.
Right.
And we build these huge cities with beautiful buildings, but people actually have to live in them. And human beings have certain requirements, certain human needs, which are often overlooked. But that was only part of the story. I am an optimist. I do believe that if people take notice of these problems, that we'll be able to conquer them. We've conquered a lot of the problems we've created.
Question to zoologist Desmond Morris. Is there any other live species on this earth which has destroyed its own habitat with deliberation such as we have in its forward evolutionary advance?
with our help, yeah, one or two have.
Elephants.
Yes, we've helped one or two species to destroy themselves because every species requires a balance in its world. And
they haven't done it by themselves. I mean, the whales didn't. The big, whatever they were, blue whales, which are now gone, I think.
Not quite.
What's the one that's gone?
Well, I think we've nearly eliminated one or two, but I think they're just clinging on. It's touch and go.
But certainly we eliminated
Oh,
that.
yes, we're the great eliminators, certainly. We are very destructive. But again, you see, why I'm optimistic is that people are aware. You're aware of that. I'm aware. We're all aware now that we can so easily destroy the environment.
Well, I hate to shatter your illusions, but I'm so aware of it that I'm sick and tired of ecology and ecologists. I'm sick and tired of those selfish, mostly rich people who live in mountains in California and say, don't put anything here, you'll disturb my ecology. When we, the human animal, needs that power. We need that coal because we ain't going to do without our winter fuel, and we ain't going to do without our motor cars.
All right, Jack, look, I take your point, Jack, and I do sympathize with that, but you see, there are stupid ways of solving that problem and sensible ways of solving it. I know exactly what you mean. There's a sort of cozy armchair ecology which irritates me, but the fact remains that there are two ways of solving many problems. If you have industrial waste, you can dump it in a place that's going to kill life, or you can force people to get rid of chemical waste without killing.
But surely in the final analysis, if what the oil companies now tell us, we've got millions, is a pack of nonsense, we may not have enough oil for 100 years. I mean, you talk in terms of millions. Supposing there ain't no oil, just supposing it disappears.
Yeah.
Supposing there's a world war or something which prevents the development of oil, and that's not unlikely either, said Webster in this optimistic mood this morning, we will finally come to the stage where the only way we can survive is by the use perhaps of nuclear power.
No, not at all, not at all. You see, one of the elements in my optimism is that we are an intensely inventive, exploratory species. Now, our inventiveness, however, has a flaw. And that is that we usually are most inventive in those areas that are almost playful. And in the most important areas, like fuel, for example, or food production and so on, our inventiveness needs a push. And it's one of the great tragedies that we could, at this moment, be putting a tremendous amount of energy into looking for a fuel to replace. Oh, now I know some work's being done, but not enough. And the inventiveness is still being applied to things like how to make a motor car go 10 miles faster from a standing start, and things like this. How to change the design of a motor car for this, that, and the other reason, when instead what we should be doing is using all our inventiveness, which is enormous, to find some way of making motor cars run on water or some simple, easily available substance. Now, that will be done. This is why I'm optimistic. We shan't need nuclear fuel, necessarily. If we do, we'll probably have found some way of taming it first. Within the next 10, 20, 30 years, we will probably be forced, because we are beginning to realize the oil is running out, we'll be forced to put more and more effort into a simple alternative fuel. We may be running our motor cars on the energy of the tides or the energy of the sun. There are all sorts of ways we can solve the problem.
Enough of this nonsense. You didn't come here for a serious ecological discussion. The sexual habits of the human is related to the monkey, and the various attractiveness were quite hysterical in the naked ape, weren't they? You must have had your leg pulled 1,000 times after that thing.
Yes, I was told that I was the man who'd put breasts back into sex again and take them out with parental care, yes.
That's true. Now, which do you prefer, monkeys, chimpanzees, or people?
I finally caught up with my own species. It took me a long time, and that's what this new book's about, Animal Days, because I started out working with fish, and then
Desmond, you're a broadcaster and a pro, and it's the end of the week. I want to take a break, and then you're going to come back and tell me all kinds of funny stories about the Soviet panda and how they wouldn't mate.
Okay.
And chimpanzees and whatnot. Just pretend you're on the BBC, and I'll go and have a smoke off camera after this break. Desmond Morris, he's got a book out called Animal Days. It's a chatty, friendly little book for animal lovers.
That's right.
You started off by bird watching, didn't you?
As a child, yes. I lived in the Wiltshire countryside, and I was surrounded by animals all through my childhood. It became very natural for me to spend all my time with them. In fact, at that stage of my life, I preferred other species to my own.
It says here that you were a shy introvert who preferred the company of the bird world than you did to your own people. You changed over the years, I gather.
Well, this is the funny thing, that if you are a shy child and you defeat that, you tend to overdo it. You know, that if you're determined to overcome your shyness, then you tend to become a bit of a ham. You go too far the other way. And this worked very well for me, because when I later on became a television presenter like yourself in England.
Television what? A television what?
Television presenter.
What in the name of all that's holy is a television presenter?
Well, we used to call them anchormen, I think, in the old days. But I suppose, now, what would you call yourself?
I'm a ham. I'm that shy introvert who overdid it on the way round the clock. The guy you just described a moment ago.
All right, then we television hams found that through television it was possible, in a strange way, to be public, and yet at the same time it's rather private, because really it's you, and through a little machine it goes into someone's home, and you're talking to one person at a time, really, or two people at a time, and it's a very intimate medium. And I found that when I moved into television and started doing animal programs, I was able to talk to, I always used to imagine I was just talking to one person or two people, although they were multiplicated many times. But I found this very pleasant, because there were lots of things I wanted to tell people about animals I'd learned.
Pick a couple. Tell them about animals.
Well, I wanted to tell people about the way in which, for example, a vampire bat. Now, I like to take an animal that had a great reputation, like a vampire. Now, everybody was terrified of vampire bats, so I thought, let's show them a vampire, because I wanted them to realize that when you get to know an animal, even a very frightening one, like a vampire, it becomes fascinating instead of fearful.
You had one on your show?
We had, well, it was very difficult to get a live vampire, but we had this vampire bat on the show, and I had a special Batman who I wasn't a bat expert, so I got in this Batman. He turned up driving a car with BAT13 as his number plate, and hanging in the back window, you know how people have little sort of furry dolls? He had a fruit bat hanging in the back window of his car when he drove up to the zoo. And every so often this bat would sort of stretch out its wings, and there'd be screaming of brakes from all the cars behind, because
you mean that was a live bird?
It was a live bat. Everybody thought it was just a doll there, you know, and then every so often it would sort of do this. However, he was a very strange man, but he was absolutely in ecstasy, because he had never seen a live vampire before, and bats were his whole life. He was completely batty. And he got into the studio, and the one thought he had was that this vampire must be protected at all costs. Other people looked at it the other way around. They wanted to be protected from the vampire, because even the cameramen were a little worried about having this live vampire. And the thing I wanted to show was that they don't suck blood, as the stories go.
What do they do?
They lap blood like a cat. And so we had to get some fresh blood into the studio, and we had this dish of blood, and the vampire very obligingly lapped blood like a little furry cat, and people saw the way it lapped up the blood. See, a vampire doesn't wake you up when it bites you, because its teeth are so sharp that it can make an incision without you even feeling it. And then, since in its saliva there's an anticoagulant, the blood runs and runs and runs, and it just sits there by the wound, lapping it up with this long cat-like tongue.
Let me get this. Vampire comes in through your window at night, slits your throat, or whatever, your toes.
Toes, usually toes.
Your toes.
Yes.
So sharp that you don't feel the slit.
That's right.
And then it puts this anticoagulant from its saliva that the blood will... and it sit there all night.
That's it, lapping it up like a cat. And I thought if...
And you had this on television?
I thought if people knew this, it would put their minds at rest.
Oh, of course it would. Just a lovely thing before you go to bed.
So anyway, the vampire did this, you see, and it was a lovable creature. It also jumped backwards like this. It was leaping about backwards, which fascinated me. It could jump in all directions, and suddenly it had gone. Now, it disappeared straight towards camera number 3, who was slightly worried by this, but he kept going, and the vampire was now heading across there. Now, my Batman, sitting next to me, you see, was terrified in case camera number 3 hurt this bat, you see. And so what he did was, in those days, we had what we called neck mics. They weren't like clip-on like this. They went around the neck, you see. And so the Batman, forgetting all about his neck mic, took off across the studio. I couldn't stop him. And he ran right across the studio towards the bat. About halfway across, he ran out of cable for his neck mic. And just as he went out of focus, you see, what the people at home saw was him running up to the camera like this. And then suddenly, as he went out of focus, as in all the best Dracula movies, he went and disappeared out of sight. Well, of course, everyone was totally convinced that the bat had got him, you see, when really it was only his neck mic strangling him. So there he was, lying out, writhing on the floor of the studio, choking, with his bat sort of leaping about all over the studio like this, and cameramen climbing up their cameras. It was almost as bad as the time the cobra escaped. I wanted to show people that cobras, I like to always get a message into my story. And the message of the cobra was that snakes are deaf. So all this business about playing flutes to them is a load of baloney. In fact, snakes can't hear a thing. What they're responding to is this waving movement, you see, of the flute. So we took a cobra. Now at the zoo, unlike the professional snake charmers, we protect our animals, we care for them, and therefore we couldn't incapacitate the cobra. In the street markets in North Africa, they'll stitch up the mouth or something horrid like that. But our cobra was a killer. I mean, I'd have been dead within about 25 minutes if he'd got me. And it was one of the most painful deaths. I mean, it's 25 minutes of sheer torture. So I was a little worried about this one too. More worried, actually. And what we did was we took the snake charmer's basket and we put the cobra in, and our snake man, I had to have snake man this time, specialists are always useful, and what he did was he taped the tail of the cobra into the bottom of the basket. Didn't hurt the snake, just bound it round with a bandage and then stitched that into the bottom, so the snake wasn't hurt, but its tail was held tight in the bottom of the basket. Put the lid on, and now when you take the lid off, the cobra comes up like this, and it can't actually get over to camera number 3 again, who by this time was demanding special danger money. And so what we did was I got a flute, and I played my flute to the cobra like this, and the cobra waved around. Then I took a stick of wood, and without making any noise, I did exactly the same thing, and the cobra did this. I made my point. Cobras responded to movement, not to sound. That was my zoological message for the day. And I was so pleased, and I was just saying, well, there we are now. We've understood that snakes are deaf. When to my horror, the cobra came out of the basket, went over the edge of the desk, and straight towards poor old camera number 3 again. Well, I mean, it couldn't happen, you know.
His tail was tied in, yeah.
His tail was tied in the basket. And this is the only time I've ever seen a television cameraman operate his camera from above. He actually managed to climb up the pillar of the camera, and he got on top of it. There were bigger cameras in those days, and he was kind of lying across the top trying to direct it. No, but he was quite right, of course, because this was really dangerous. The vampire bat wasn't that dangerous, but this cobra was a killer. Well, after the program was over and we caught the snake up safely without any trouble, we couldn't understand how it happened. We looked in the bottom of the basket, and the one thing we'd overlooked was that this snake was just about to shed its skin. And there, taped in the bottom of the basket, was its beautifully shed skin.
Oh, my God. You would have been nailed for fairly large damages had anyone actually been killed by that cobra, for gross negligence and not knowing that she was going to shed her skin.
Yes, exactly. I don't know how we ever got away with it. I did this for 10 years, and as a matter of fact, it's very interesting, you know, it was live television in those days, you see. There was no videotape. And people really watched the program to see if I would live through to the end of it. And at first there was some doubt about this, but later on we became more professional. And it became too smooth, you see. Things didn't go wrong. So we had to actually take risks deliberately to get the excitement back. And that nearly finished me off.
Next story, chimpanzees now, please.
Oh, can I talk about the scorpions very quickly?
Oh, please, yes. I love scorpions. We used to put gasoline around them in Egypt.
Oh, nasty, yes.
Yes.
Anyway, the point, see, this is when things became too smooth, I decided that I would demonstrate how to pick up a scorpion, you see, because that would frighten me and that would get some adrenaline back into the program.
Pick up a scorpion?
How to pick up a scorpion.
That big tail.
Well, you see, since the sting is in the tail, all you've got to do is to pick it up by the tail and it can't sting you.
Oh, I
right?
see.
Because it's got to do that. And if you've got the stinger, it can't sting you.
Obviously,
Obvious,
logical,
simple.
common sense, sure.
No problem.
Any fool knows that.
Exactly.
Pick up a scorpion by the tail and it can't sting you.
Exactly.
Right. Get me a scorpion.
And this is the sort of thing I felt that the children of England should know.
Of course.
It never occurred to me at the time that I might be causing endless deaths. No, actually, I did warn children not to do this, and I warn you now, don't do it, because it nearly finished me. What happened was that I was so scared, having set myself this task, and since the scorpions were again killers, that my hands started to sweat. And my hands got, you know, how when you're scared, your hands get wet. And so when I went to pick up the scorpion, it kept slipping out of my fingers, and this made the scorpion more and more angry. And eventually I did get hold of him. He was so angry now that he managed to curl himself up and was trying to get me with his pincers.
And if he'd got you with the pincers...
He'd have got me, and I'd have got him.
Right.
And I said to the head keeper afterwards, what would have happened? And he said, sir, he said, that's what we call a vicious circle. So I said, well, what would have happened? He said, well, you see, whichever one of you had given up first, you'd have been the winner. And so I said, oh, well, if he'd slipped loose, and he said, yes, you'd have been a goner, sir. So I said, well, thank you for telling me. And he said, have you finished with the scorpions now, sir? You see, I'd been doing this with great drama. So I said, yes. He said, all right, so thank you very much. And he sort of picked them up like this, put them in the box and went, which rather deflated me.
Because he knew how to do it quickly.
Well, you see, if you do it quickly enough, you're all right.
Yeah, it's like, I suppose, like putting out a candle
with
your fingers.
That's right. You've got to do it very quickly, and I was taking too long over it.
You're feeling very chatty this morning, which is a great relief to me. Did they put out the phone numbers? No calls from Morris? I'm absolutely astonished that he's not deluged with calls from animal lovers and animal haters. Anyway, he's going to tell stories after this message. Oh, thank God we left.
15 seconds.
I'd be an old wreck. Desmond Morris has written a delightful book called Animal Days. You must be a friend of Jane Goodall's.
Yes, I know Jane very well, yes.
The gorilla woman.
No, she's a chimp lady.
She's a chimp
There is
lady.
a gorilla girl, but she's the chimp girl.
Oh, I thought Jane was a gorilla girl. The gorilla girl must be an American then.
Diane Fossey is the gorilla girl.
She's an American?
Yes, she's bigger.
She's bigger. Leahy and Africa and all that kind of thing. When did you first get involved with chimps? Tell me about chimps.
Well, chimps are extraordinary animals. I spent 3 years. The one on the dust jacket is the Congo.
The one on the dust jacket.
Yeah, that's not me.
No.
People think that's me, but it isn't. That's the chimpanzee Congo. Congo became a great television
Not unlike
star.
you. You both have the same forehead.
I had more hair then. Yeah.
I see.
The chimpanzee Congo caused me endless trouble because he became a star. And as a television star, he used to have an enormous following. Now, I wanted him to be, an animal. I'm a zoologist. I didn't want him to become, get involved with showbiz. But such was the pressure put upon me that eventually I did agree once to allow him to go to a special luncheon at the Café Royal, which was more used to Oscar Wilde than to young chimpanzees. And this luncheon taught me that I'd been right to try and prevent this kind of razzmatazz, because what happened was that the chimpanzee, having become this great star, was sitting at a big circular table, and he was sitting next to a duchess, a real duchess, who had a gold cigarette case. And he very nonchalantly leant over, opened the cigarette case, took out all the cigarettes, bit them in two, put them back, and moved it back. And then he discovered that the table had a tablecloth. Now, normally he didn't have tablecloths on his tables, and he discovered the old conjurer's trick of pulling the tablecloth off, only it didn't work. And the Café Royal was becoming more and more chaotic, and I decided it was time to get him out of there. And this is when the trouble really began, because he spotted a St. Bernard dog, who was also a film star, huge dog, with his agent, and he was moving across quite gently, in a docile kind of St. Bernard sort of way, when Congo, who was a very fiery young chimp, spotted him and went off in hot pursuit. The St. Bernard took fright and fled right across the middle of the splendid Rococo dining room, pursued by the small chimpanzee. I hate to tell you this because you'll be upset, but on the way he spotted a Scotsman wearing a kilt. And he lifted it up to look underneath. He really did. I couldn't believe it. He actually lifted up this Scotsman's kilt, peered underneath, and then rushed on, bit a television news reporter, and pursued the St. Bernard into the ladies' lavatory. Now, I've never before in my life been called upon to extricate a male chimpanzee from a ladies' lavatory in an exclusive restaurant. And I didn't quite know how to handle this. But the problem was solved because there were terrible noises coming from inside this lavatory, which was full of elegant ladies and a St. Bernard and a chimpanzee. And after a few moments, the dog, whining, emerged in panic, followed by a large number of ladies with smudged lipstick, also in panic. And after a couple of minutes, I thought it would be okay to go in and get him out. So I very quietly opened the door and went in. The place was empty. Congo was sitting on one of the hand basins, urinating into it, and kissing himself in the mirror. And I was just beginning to gather him up to get him out when I heard a trembling voice saying, "Is it safe to come out now?" from one of the cubicles, you see. And I thought if I said, "Yes, madam," she'd be even more upset. So I didn't say anything, and I just crept out because I figured that would be less stressful for her. And we got outside to where this huge black limousine was waiting with his chauffeur with his peaked cap to take us back. And now he was more used to driving nobility and movie actors and so on. And he wasn't used to a chimpanzee either. And Congo found a new way of enlivening the trip back because he leant forward and pulled the man's cap down right over his eyes as we were going up Regent Street. And we were sort of veering around like this with this man trying to get his cap off. And Congo thought the whole thing was absolutely hysterically funny. He was doing the chimpanzee laugh, which is quite different from ours.
What is the chimpanzee laugh?
Like that. You see, a chimpanzee... a chimpanzee... I sent the cobra after him. A chimpanzee's laugh is very different because it always keeps its upper teeth covered with its lips. Now, Ham was a chimpanzee who was sent into space. I don't even remember, a chimpanzee went into
Good story from your book, it is.
Yeah, well, now, it's a sad story, actually, because Ham went up in this rocket and came back to Earth, and there's a famous photograph taken by the Space Authority. They opened the rocket, and there was Ham with a big Louis Armstrong grin on his face, holding out his hands like this. And the caption in under the photograph in all the newspapers read, "See how happy Ham is to be home." He's saying how pleased he is to see us again. Now, actually, if a chimpanzee shows its upper teeth as well as its lower teeth, it is scared, it's miserable, it's wretched, and what he was really saying was, "You bastards, let me out of here." But you have to know chimpanzee expressions, and you have to learn the expressions of each animal.
You can, in fact, speak chimpanzee.
Yes, I'm fluent in chimp, but my orangutan is a bit rusty. Now, tiger, I'm very good at tiger, but I could never master lion. Would you like to...
I'd like to hear tiger.
All right, well, if you want to make friends with a tiger, right? It's very simple. And I'm quite serious. I mean, it sounds funny, but I'm serious.
No, I know you're serious. Yes,
No,
very serious.
If you want to make friends with a tiger, all you have to do is to go up to it and go like that, and you'll be friends for life. No trouble, no problem. Really.
In other words, I can drop my father's old story about the time he was in Africa and he's met by a tiger on the trail. So he stops there, puts his hands down the tiger's throat, gets the inside of his tail, pulls it out, and it runs away the other way inside out. That's no good.
No, that's no
Just
good.
go.
And you're on. No, we'll work on it after the program.
What about the lion?
Well, lions don't have a greeting sign like that. Well, they do. It's a kind of a sort of, it's a leonine meow, which is difficult for a human being to do. If you take a cat's meow and then you sort of slow it down.
I say, though, seriously, if one can never be serious with you in this kind of mood about this kind of book. I've seen a number of television programs where these smart little chimps, I think they are, communicate by computer button. That
Yes.
indicates an active, comprehensible thought process, doesn't it?
Oh, yes. I was able, with my chimpanzee Congo, to I gave him painting material, and he was able to paint abstract pictures. He never painted images, but he did organize his abstract lines, his patterns, in such a way that it was clear that he had certain concepts. He had a fan pattern, a shape like that, and he would vary that, and sometimes he would draw it backwards, sometimes he would do
Did
two
they
and
sell
so on.
well?
Unfortunately, yes. I say unfortunately because I held an exhibition of chimpanzee paintings in London in the 60s. And I refused to put them on sale because I said, no, this is a serious experiment, which it was. Julian Huxley opened the exhibition, and it was a serious study of the origin of aesthetics. But of course, people were desperate to buy them. And it wasn't a joke at the expense of modern art, and I was very cross when it became one. But the nice story is that when Picasso was given one of these pictures by a mutual friend, and a reporter went to see Picasso and asked him what he thought of this chimpanzee painting. And I was delighted to hear Picasso's reaction. What he did was he left the room, and then he reappeared with his arms swinging like this, and he flew at the reporter and bit him. Now, what he was saying, of course, was that, the chimpanzee and I have something in common.
Oh.
And all the important painters, Miro and Picasso and a number of others, who studied the chimpanzee paintings, realized that this wasn't a joke.
They had an art concept.
That they had a concept of playing with shapes and patterns, which is the basis of human art.
Hold your breath. Desmond Morris, what do you really think of him? He's real. He really is. And famous, too. World famous. How many copies of The Naked Ape did you sell?
I think about 8 million.
8 million?
Yeah, something like
My
that.
God. After this break. Desmond Morris, the zoologist, the naked ape man, whose book is now called Animal Days, his new book. You've got this telephone gimmick in British television, haven't you?
Not a lot.
Well,
Not
let's
a
try
lot.
it with you. I hope it's a big success. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Yes, go ahead to Desmond Morris.
And to Mr. Morris.
Good morning.
Miss Farrow from the Sun paper on Monday, August the 27th, 1879, wrote this article about the Coquihalla River with a pipeline.
Hold on, please. What the hell is he doing on the Coquihalla River? Go ahead, please. Do forgive my bad language, will you, please? It's your English looseness and your use of words like so-and-so that makes me do it. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this me? Oh, yes, I was just saying I was watching the program, and Mr. Desmond began the program talking about self-destruction.
Right.
And then, of course, now he seems more like Dr. Dolittle. I know I always enjoyed the Dr. Dolittle books when I was a child, but I'd just like to say I don't believe in the theory of evolution.
Okay, ma'am, we're not going to discuss the theory of evolution this morning, Desmond Morris. I was looking for some bright, witty calls. Go ahead, please.
Yes, you mentioned that in your story about the scorpion that your hands became sweaty trying to pick it up.
Yes.
And there are a number of things now that human beings have that we call nervous reactions, like sweaty hands. How many of those things are holdovers from the time that we were actually animals?
Many of them. In fact, we do still have so many of our early animal properties that sometimes they come into conflict with our present way of life. One of the things, just to give one example, sometimes it's a small thing like sweating palms. Other times it's a big thing, like the fact that we are, as a species, as individuals, we're ambitious. Now you see, if you are a fruit-eating animal or grass-eating animal, it's munch, 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 munch. It's a repetitive way of life, rather like working at a factory bench. But we evolved as hunters, and a hunter is a kind of way of life, way of thinking, which involves distant goals towards which you work, which in the case of a hunting animal is the kill. And we are hunters still. That's our nature. But we've transformed that into other things, and we don't need any more to kill, but we do need a symbolic kill. And this is why you talk about a killing in the city. This is why you talk about a man having drive and energy towards a particular goal. And so any human being who has a lifestyle which enables him to work towards a particular goal and achieve it and win that particular goal, he is working in the right way for a human being. He doesn't have to be a killer, because we can become symbolic killers, but he does have to be able to kill a problem.
Those, therefore, with ambition and drive are more closer to the original animal man than those who are quite prepared to sit
and do nothing. And in fact, that is why, of course, the high-status occupations are those which involve ambition and drive, and why nobody, for preference, wants to have a boring, repetitive task. It's why repetitive tasks are boring. And one of the very interesting things is that those people whose lives do involve a great deal of repetition are very often those people who are passionate followers of sport. Because the sporting event, the football match, that is a kind of symbolic acting out of the ancient hunt, which involves physical risk, planning, strategy, group cooperation, etc., etc.
Have you ever seen Canadian hockey?
Canadian hockey is very much a hunt.
Especially junior hockey in this part of the world. They kill.
Yeah.
They beat up each other. They hold each other back.
And I hear you have a very successful hunting pack known as the Whitecaps, who've just done some marvellous things.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
They're all, unfortunately, Englishmen. They're very good. Desmond Morris, I know you'll be a great success anyway with the Animal Days, and you have been, and it's unusual for me to say this, a delightful, informative, witty, charming, and bloody good guest. Linda, Monday morning.
Very interesting workers' compensation case, and Ben Wicks, political cartoonist.
Not Wicks.
Yes.
The compensation case is good. Webster will be back Monday at 9 a.m. precisely. Why they did not clamp down on the non-dependent relatives.
Of course. What do you think? You're not simple or something, are you?
I'm asking.